Hello Digimon fans! We are near the end of BT4 meta. Yes, in less than a week, Battle of Omega BT5 will drop. And we will probably see new decks dominating the competitive scene. Well, we haven't really talked much about the BT4 meta. Yes, we talked about the Yellow War Greymon deck. But as you know, you all saw a glimpse of the Tier 1 Chaosmon Green. I never really talked much about it. So that is what I'm gonna do today. Well, of course, in recent weeks, Yellow War Greymon has been more prominent. More people are starting to use Yellow War Greymon over Green Chaosmon. So why is that so? Maybe it's because Green isn't that OP. Yeah, everyone says that, Green is OP, nothing can beat Green, but somehow Yellow seems to be dominating as of late. Even then, Green is still a solid tier 1 because I just came off judging a local webcam tournament by Impulse Gaming, and guess what? The champion used Green. Yup, the final glory for Green decks. So, before the meta ends, I would like to talk about how to build a BT4 Green deck. So, to build a green deck, I analyzed all the green decks from the start of the meta all the way until the end of January. By doing so, I would be able to see the usage statistics of all cards and find the build that is most consistent in winning tournaments. So, after looking through the statistics compiled by DTCG Review, I managed to find 53 tournament winning green decks. So now, where do we start? The first thing we should look at is deck structure. When we talk about green, we usually think of swarming, Digisorption. So a lot of novice players actually have the misconception that they actually need a playset of Mimi to push out your Digitama as fast as possible. Like hello, there are only 5 Digitama. You will need 4 Mimi to push them out. And the statistics also agree with this. Out of 53 first place green decks, 28 of them actually did not play any tamers. Wow! That's like more than half of them. But what if you want tamers? How many should you play and what should you play? The second most frequent tamer amount is 2 tamers, which was used by 16 decks, while 7 others played 3. Out of those 16 decks, 12 actually played only Mimi, 2 played only Ken, while 2 other decks used 2 different tamers, one using 1 Mimi and 1 Ken, while another using 1 Mimi and 1 BT1 Koshiro. That was the only deck which played BT1 Koshiro really. Despite people thinking that BT1 Koshiro actually being able to help you with tempo, it doesn't really seem that good apparently. There was also only one deck which used ST4 Koshiro, and that deck actually had 6 tamers! It was the only one with that many though, but regardless of the number of tamers, the total number of non-Digimon cards in all 53 decks did not exceed 9, meaning every one of them had 41 or more Digimon cards for consistency. Since I'm used to not playing any tamers, we shall go with the ratio of 46 Digimon and 4 options, which just so happen to be the most frequently used deck ratio, with 18 of 53 decks being built this way. Now that we've settled on the deck ratio, let's start building! So remember my deck building video? I said that we should always start with a core. With Green getting 2 level 7s this set, it is too hard not to build a team around them. So, shall we build around Chaosmon or Valder-Arm? Out of 53 decks, 45 of them had a level 7, and 23 of that 45 actually played 3 or more. However, the most frequent amounts of level 7s in the deck seems to be 2, with 20 of them running either 2 Chaosmon or 2 Valder-Arm or 1 each. However, 19 decks also ran 3 level 7s. So, I guess that might be something to explore as well. So, the sweet spot seems to be 2 to 3 Chaosmon, and it can be either one of them or both together. Other than level 7s, we would also need some good Megas to back it up. Topping the usage chart is Nihawkmon at 42, an amazing card which can Digiburst to suspend all Digimon on your opponent's side with 5000 or less DP and send all your opponent's suspended Digimon into the bottom of your opponent's deck. It is followed closely by Spatula the Haraku Kabutorimon at 41. Well, why did I call it Spatula? Well, I did explain it in one of my previous videos, but I believe a lot of players already know this meme. Anyway, further down we also have Saint Galgomon appearing in 18 decks and Bancho Stingmon with 10 appearances. What about other level 6s? Well, there are also Ceresmon, Titamon, Grand Kuwagamon Promo, and Pinocchimon. But all of them only appeared in around 10% of the decks, and the rest, well, kinda too insignificant to talk about. So personally, I would go with the top 3 Nihawkmon, Spatula, and Saint Galgomon. This deck proved to have quite a bit of synergy, with 34 decks playing both Nihawkmon and Spatula, 16 decks using Nihawkmon and Saint Galgomon, while 14 decks played Saint Galgomon and Spatula. And those with all 3? There were 11 of them. It might not seem a lot, I mean, it's a little over 20%, but this is actually the most frequently used combo in green. Now we're done with the hard hitters, let's go on to the other levels. For rookies, you can actually play 4 to 5 kinds. And the top 2 most used rookies in green are, surprise surprise, Algomon and Goblimon. The question is, these 2 vanilla cards are actually identical in DP, play cost, and Digivolution cost. So, how many of them do we actually need? Well, according to the statistics, 33 decks actually use a playset of Algomon, while 39 decks use a playset of Goblimon. What about a playset of both? Would it be overkill? Well, don't worry, 29 decks actually use 8 of them, while 13 of them use 6. There were also only 8 that played less than 5. Meanwhile, SD4 Palmon is the next most frequently used rookie, appearing in 41 decks. It gives your Digimon a 2000 DP boost if you're attacking a Digimon. It goes very well with piercing Digimon, which is why it's no surprise that it's so high in the usage charts. Since it goes well with Chaosmon and Spatula, you will probably need a playset of them. In fact, that's what 29 decks did, so it surely wouldn't go wrong. Slightly lower down the usage chart at 32 is Terriermon and ST4 Tentomon. While both are quite frequently used in green decks, they aren't as important as the first 3, hence do not often appear in decks as a playset. In fact, people usually put in 2 Terriermon, with more than half of them opting for that amount. Meanwhile, only 1/3 of decks with Tentomon use a playset of it. What about other rookies? Are there any honorable mentions? Well, Agumon and Lalamon are 2 Digimon that are less prominent, but still used often enough to be a good addition. Similarly to Terriermon, Lalamon isn't actually used in a playset, while most players who use Agumon opt to have 4 of it. Well, a little extra DP always helps. As for level 4s, the most popular card seems to be SD4 Kabutorimon. Yep, a 1-cost blocker which is amazing! Not only can you block with it, you can also use it to ramp. In fact, 40 out of 51 decks with SD4 Kabutorimon actually use a playset of it. The drawback? You actually need to get 2 starter decks because you only get a pair in each. The next most frequently used card is Vegiemon, appearing in 41 decks. 6k DP low cost vanilla, what more can we ask for? It also seems like quite an important card, with 30 decks actually playing a playset of them. Surprisingly, despite almost every green deck using SD4 Kabutorimon, Woodmon is still pretty high up on the usage chart at number 3, featuring in 28 decks. I guess it's always good to have more blockers, especially those that wouldn't get suspended by Nihawkmon. However, it doesn't seem like a good idea relying too much on them, as only 5 decks use a playset. As much as extra blockers are a bonus, it is still important to not overdo it. as green has a lot of low-cost level 4s which can aid you in ramping. And one of such cards is BT1 Kabutorimon, which appeared in 25 decks. Surprisingly, it is more popular than Galgomon, which is almost a clone of it, but with lower cost at the expense of DP. Well, is it a good idea to play the both of them together? Well, a lot of them use them together, but most of them play 4 or less. Honorable mention for level 4 is Stingmon, who only appeared in 9 decks. It gains you a memory every time you win a battle against an opponent's Digimon. This would also go well with a deck with Chaosmon and Spatula. Though, surprisingly, despite being quite popular in the last meta, Algomon did not appear much. This was probably because Ceresmon hardly appeared in this meta, and also other level 4s bring more benefit than Algomon. Finally, we get to level 5. Unsurprisingly, Algomon and Blossomon leads the usage charts. Both of them were used in 44 of 53 first place decks. That's it, with both having Digisorption, how necessary is it to run both of them together, and how many of them should you play? Well, 39 decks actually run both of them together, and 19 out of 49 decks with Digisorption level 5s play 7 of them. In fact, there are 9 decks which play a playset of both, so it's not too bad if you want to run that many as well. However, if you only want to run a playset of either, it isn't too shabby, as 8 decks actually ran only 4 of them, making use of other level 5s. Other than these two, Cherrymon is also very popular, coming in third with 19. Seems like more blockers aren't really much of a problem. SD4 Adler Kabutorimon and Lilamon are also used quite frequently. Adler Kabutorimon is great in piercing decks, as it trashes a security card when you win a battle. But even if you don't have piercing, I guess it's a good boost for you to wear down your opponent's security quicker. Lilamon, on the other hand, is a good card if you have Tamers, as it provides more suspending support. Surprisingly, despite having a similar inherited effect with Lilamon, BT1 Lilimon didn't seem to be used much, having only featured in 2 decks. Maybe that Digiburst effect was the deal breaker. Now, we've looked at the Digimon and Tamer cards. All that is left is the options. There's a huge discrepancy in the usage rating for options, by the way. Hidden Potential Discovered was by far the most popular option, featuring in all but 1 deck. In fact, 24 decks actually ran a playset of it, while 18 ran only 3. The only deck which didn't run this card used 2 Chiku Chiku Bang Bang and 2 Dimension Scissors. Speaking of Dimension Scissors, the once popular gimmick card actually didn't see much use, only featuring in 2 decks. While Hornbuster, another formerly popular card which allowed Vanilla Green to dance around with bigger decks, was only used in 1 deck. Chiku Chiku Bang Bang and Flow Cannon were used in 4 and 3 decks respectively. Despite having different security effects, I guess there are pros and cons for either one, and it's quite hard to determine which one is the better card. Flow Cannon can actually suspend multiple cards, which can be pretty useful against Rookie Rush, while Chiku Chiku Bang Bang allows you to suspend offensive reboot blockers such as Ragnalortmon and Wargreymon, and you can even add it to your hand after that. So now we're done with the main deck, we can look at the Digitama deck instead. While some people might want to use 4 Digitama for consistency, it seems safe to use 5, because Green has some very good Digitama. In fact, only 2 of the 53 first place Green decks use 4 instead of 5. Minomon and Algomon seem to be the most popular Digitama to use, being featured in 35 and 34 decks respectively. Most decks usually run 4 Algomon and 1 Minomon, while only 2 run 4 Minomon and 1 Algomon. Tanemon is also a popular choice, appearing in 20 decks. It is a particularly popular sidekick to Algomon and Minomon, with 8 decks running 4 Minomon and 1 Tanemon, while 6 decks ran 4 Algomon and 1 Tanemon. Motimon was the only other Digitama to see play in this meta, being featured in 13 decks. So in the end, this is the deck I built. Initially I ran 4 Algomon and 1 Minimon in my Digitama deck, but I kind of felt that my deck lacked firepower. Playing against yellow saw them target my suspended Digimon a lot with DP reduction, hence I seldom managed to trigger the memory gain. That is why I decided to change it to something that boosts my DP. In the end, I settled with Motimon over Minimon, as I usually build up to level 6, and it also gives me a DP boost when I target the player. Initially, I also tried to play 4 Atlas Kabuterimon and 6 Digisorption Digimon, but the deck seemed a bit too heavy to keep up in games against other green decks. So in the end, I settled with a playset of level 5 Algomon and Blossomon. I also did some playtests using Mimi, and while it might seem okay against other decks, it was just bad for green mirror matches. Well, particularly because playing Mimi for 4 will give a huge tempo swing to your opponent. Furthermore, if you only have Chaosmon on the board, you won't be able to use Mimi anyway, so I decided to scrap it totally. And after building this deck, I finally played in my first Tamer battle since Phase 3! Due to local social distancing rules, the locals here usually have a limit of 8 players. In contrast to early BT4 meta, where green was everywhere, there were actually 3 yellow players today, and I was the only green! Oh wow, such a stark contrast! We played 3 Swiss rounds, where I played a black deck in the first round, followed by 2 yellow Wargreymon decks. My first opponent's deck was kinda interesting. Initially, I thought that he was using a Dark Dramon deck because he was rushing me with Commandramon. Well, turns out he had another tactic under his sleeve. It wasn't a Dark Dramon deck at all, but a Black Wargreymon deck. Yup, the promo Black Wargreymon. This deck is supposed to be versatile, where the player changes their playstyle depending on the cards in hand, be it Commandramon Rush or Digivolve up to Black Wargreymon. The following 2 were pretty standard, although my second round opponent had Holy Dramon as an extra option to play Bushi Agumon. In the end, I finished the tournament in 3rd place, losing in my second round to the eventual champion. So, what are my thoughts on this deck? Basically, it is pretty smooth and consistent, despite it breaking hard in the second round. However, I seem to notice that Chaosmon came out a little less frequently than I would have liked to. Out of 7 games, it only came out twice. Hence, I guess I could actually play 3 Chaosmon, or maybe add 1 Valderarm instead. These changes would have to be implemented this month, as effective next month, Algomon level 5 and Hidden Potential discovered will be restricted to just 1 copy under the game's new restriction rule. In this case, playing other level 5s and options to fill up the gaps would be a good idea. Maybe put in 2 Mimi to replace the 2 empty slots left by reducing Hidden Potential discovered? How about some Lilimon as well? So, the meta ends in less than a week, but the new rules would only apply in March. So we've got a little bit more time to play with this deck. But then, how will the new rules affect this deck? Well, we can have a chat about it next time. So stay tuned to my channel and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching everyone. Bye!